Okay, I wanted to jump on the bandwagon here and take a quick look at the R5C firmware updates that have either come out or been rumored, because things are picking up, it seems. I thought I'd toss my opinions in there. It's always interesting if you take a look at some of the smaller, channels that use these cameras on the YouTube, just how different people's use cases are. And so, something that one person's really looking forward to in terms of a firmware upgrade means almost nothing to anyone else. And then vice versa. Now recently, within the last week, the R5 got the kind of a single firmware update. They went to their 400 megapixel sort of high-res mode using the IBIS to move the sensor around. Of course, that isn't something that can come to the R5C because it doesn't have IBIS. I haven't really delved too deeply into reviews on that. Not that there really have been any yet from a source that's done a good video breakdown. I think with really zooming in 800, 1000% or whatever to really nitpick the details. Likewise, the R5C got the apparently increased video quality in C-Log 3 and XFAVC and MP4, enough to give it Netflix certification. Just before I came up, I did install it and just did a few quick little tests. I actually haven't had a chance to put them on the computer and blow them up yet, but by the time I edit this, I will take a look at those as well. Okay, these are my settings replicated between the two tests. Before the firmware update, I did save these settings to an SD card so that they would stay the same. And at 80 millimeters, note that the Canon 18-80 does cover full frame, despite being a Super 35 lens. Starting here with the XFAVC version 1021 firmware. This is with a manual grade using the kind of the grading techniques in Final Cut Pro recommended by X-Rite for dealing with this color checker chart. Then we move to the 0.31 firmware upgrade. Then this is the same thing replicated, but this time instead of doing a manual grade using the C-Log 2 wide DR, Canon supplied a lot with a few manual adjustments to bring it into line, and then the same thing with the 1031 firmware. Now if we blow things up here, at 200%, we see that there is a difference in noise. It looks like there's a little less magenta chroma noise in the updated firmware version. It looks like the detail, sharpness are the same. And then we're going to look at this at 800% here. This is with the fully manually graded version, by the way. And at 800%, we really see a difference here between a lack of that more magenta chroma noise in the updated version. Now, for the life of me, I can't remember whether or not I black balanced the camera after installing 1031. However, seeing that we're seeing less noise in the update, I think I must have, and if I hadn't, we would probably see an equivalent or even more noise. So if I did forget it, however, I mean, this should all be taken with a big grain of salt and might just be completely worthless. However, given what we're seeing here, I didn't do anything in the camera that would have, any reason for it to reduce noise. So overall, I'd say this is an improvement. And are we seeing a smaller, slightly finer noise pattern here in the MP4 version? My testing methodology isn't nearly up to snuff in order to suss out differences like that. Maybe someone else can chime in on this. And also, given that this update seems to be the reason the R5C was suddenly given Netflix certification, it would have been nice to get a bit more of a blurb from Canon on what exactly is going on under the hood versus the fairly generic, quote, better image quality. Well, I've just woken up this morning to announcements of some more, what's Canon calling them, the CNE Flexi or Flex Zooms, I believe, and then also another spat of firmware updates for a number of the cinema cameras, the R5C included. So I kind of wanted to jump on that and take a look at things. So I'm going to start with taking a quick look at some things that would be very nice to have, and I don't really see any reason why Canon couldn't implement them in that they're not, hardware limited. So to start with, using aperture control or just being able to customize this back dial. Now when I'm in video mode, I'm very, used to just the shutter set 180 aperture with the front dial here. And then I've got not the Canon, but the Mikey RF to EF adapter with the NDs in there. And so I'll do exposure with that. So I'll choose my aperture, shutter set, and I'll control exposure with this. ISO is also set, and I generally use that with the rear touchscreen just because it's another step to get there. I've tried setting it to the top dial before or doing other combinations, and I'll inevitably hit it and change it, and look down a few shots later and realize that it's been, you know, at 1,000 or 640 or something for the last few shots, or even worse. And so I generally like to have that second step to kind of keep it hidden away a bit more. So really, for me, it's aperture on the front dial, but being able to do something with this back dial would be great. That being said, even in photo mode then, there doesn't seem to be the ability to customize the delete button, which is something I know you can do on the just the EOS R, which I'm filming with now, and I'm not sure about the R5. On the EOS R, I use that delete button as my focus reset button. What I've done here is customize that for the number 12 button when I'm shooting stills with this. And that actually lines up nicely with the 1DC or the 1D series, where you do have these extra buttons around the neck or the throat of the lens mount there. Wireless connection in video. It works in photo. It's not the quickest, you know, refresh, but it works. There are, even myself who doesn't generally use that, I have come across a few use cases for things like that. It would be so nice to be able to use it in video mode. It works on all of Canon's other cinema cameras. The only reason I can think it not working or it being more difficult to implement is just if there's, I don't know, if there's some way the hardware and software can't communicate properly. So as we know, you get a complete shutdown and reboot into the Cinema OS or the Photo OS modes. And you know, is that hardware module, that Wi-Fi module, only connected then somehow to the Photo OS side of things? Is there some reason it can't simultaneously kind of connect to the Cinema OS? It's the only thing I can kind of think of, but I don't know, I feel like that is still just a software thing. So really, hopefully that could be changed. Now, kind of along that same train of thought then, is a lot of people are asking for video AF updates. A lot of the, you know, lower end cameras, R6 II, R7, R8, have had a lot of different tracking modes added or little AF tweaks added here and there. Yeah, sure. I don't necessarily feel like I'm lacking or missing things. Like, I haven't gone in to customize enough of the autofocus options even on this to really, I think, benefit too much from other things, or to benefit too much from updated settings. Although absolutely, if you can do it, that would be great to have. It would be greater if we could get not only photo tweaks on the R5 side, but I don't know if there's any way to implement DPAF2 on the video side, or why that was left out originally. The C70 within the last few months got some big updates, one of them being in the SNF modes having eye tracking, which this still does not have. You're limited to a fairly basic center box when you get to, I think it's just the 120p modes. I'm pretty sure in 4K 60 you still have eye tracking and face tracking. Again, see, I don't use these modes a ton. These are modes and options that for some people are going to be their bread and butter, but for me, it's you know, I really don't use them that often. But again, there are other people out there for whom that would be a great upgrade, so Canon, if you can do it. Now, that being said, bridging back to my previous point about, is the Wi-Fi module able to communicate with kind of both sides of the camera like that? In terms of autofocus, and comparing this to some of Canon's other cameras, does the Digic X have all the capabilities and potential that the Digic DV processors have, which are on the cinema side of things? So is there any limitation there? Obviously, there's something, and the Digic DV are more tailored to video because that's what every cinema EOS camera, save this, has. And so there definitely is some differentiation there. Now, is that cause for some of the AF modes? You know, is the Digic DV, are those processors not able to take advantage of DPAF2? Is that something they just can't run? So there is that as well. Can these two OSs that are installed on here, can they both take advantage of the same features in the camera? Can that Digic X SoC properly use everything on both sides of the camera? It'd be really great to have a deep dive from Canon on the differences and similarities between their Digic and Digic DV processors. That would be really interesting. I guess if we stick then with some of the C70 updates, because they have that eye tracking and SNF mode. Again, I wouldn't use it much, but it would be nice to have. But having that, believe it's only in Super 16 crop mode, the C70 goes to 180 frames per second. It would be nice. Canon has never pushed high frame rates past 120p on their cameras. Why not give it a little go this time? I think it would just be fun to be able to play around, even with a 1080p 180 mode. The Canon 709 profile Wide DR is what I generally use, and what I generally, you know, for quicker turnarounds, what I go, if I shoot log, that's generally what I use one of the Canon LUTs to get me into that wide DR profile. And from the little clips I've, you know, seen around, it looks like the highlight roll-off on the Canon 709 isn't as nice as the wide DR. So I'd likely still keep with the wide DR, but again, it would be fun to play around with that. 4-channel audio monitoring option is something the C70 got through a firmware update as well. That would be nice to have on here for those times. You know, for those people who are using the Tascam blah, 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 blah adapter on the top here, you know, maybe using a 3.5 millimeter adapter on the side as well. I'm actually not sure if those can be used concurrently. And actually, maybe there has been an update where if you connect that, you do get 4-channel audio. Well, I mean, I know you get 4-channel audio, but the ability to monitor 4 channels at a time would be nice. Pre-shooting buffer for both photo and video, so we're not relying on an external monitor. I think the Ninja V, you can Ninja 5. I think with the Ninjas you can enable a pre-shooting buffer for video. For photo, that would be great to have as well. And then more customizability for these things. As we've gone from film to digital and then digital to mirrorless, I mean, they're just little computers. Why can we not more fully customize our frames per second, our timers? It seems ridiculous. When I was using the NX1 a number of years ago, the Samsung NX1, regret selling that. But even that, you could go in and you could set like a custom timer, you know, not just 2 seconds or 10 seconds like we've had on these since forever, for well over 20 years now, but 1, 3, 5, whatever you want, and then being able to set the number of shots that you want in your burst as well. But there are so many simple software settings that you could tweak in here, that you could upgrade via firmware so easily, it seems, to enable a lot more functionality and just ease of use for situations like that. It would be like maybe you can accomplish some of that by going into the interval modes, but you know, we're all used to doing a timer and stuff. We're all used to just going to the 2 second or 10 second, but being able to have a custom mode where you could go in and set what you want. And then also just being able to customize in electronic shutter mode your frames per second. So if I think this is 20 max in electronic, but if you could really set anywhere from 1 to 20, that seems like it would be a no-brainer. Powering the camera. As far as I know, it's still only the official Canon adapter that's expensive, and it's actually just goes to the mains, I think, where it gives you the full, 9 volt, 3 amps, or whatever is required to give you full functionality in all modes via an adapter that goes via the battery compartment here, using a fake LPE6. Otherwise, you're stuck using USB. Canon, give us the option to have third-party adapters. Why can I not have, you know, either via the grip or just here, a dummy LPE6 that goes out to a V-mount battery or an external battery via DTAP that provides that full power? I know a few cable manufacturers have messed around with it and aren't getting the needed power. Alvin's Cable, I think I spoke to him a number of months ago, and they just couldn't get it to work. So whether Canon has locked that off, just the way they can battery ID and know that you're not using a genuine Canon battery, and then you have that option to say, hey, yes, it's not genuine, but I still want to use it. Maybe they're locking it off somehow, but for me, that it seems silly. Maybe there's an update now. Maybe there's a way that this accepts third-party batteries and gives the full required power to run the camera at its full potential. Again, they're not things I'm using every day, but just being able to power the camera fully and have access to the camera's full potential at any given time would be nice. Speaking of power, low-res standby mode. And I think a power saving mode. So for people who are doing streaming or have some reason to take 8K output from this, but they don't have any need to record inside, that makes sense to downsample or to be having that full 8K output, or downsample 4K if they're sending out a 4K signal. Not record and be able to output that and have it be doing that downsampling in camera, sure. But for those of us who don't need to be outputting that high quality all the time, don't need the downsampling when we're not recording, just have it kick into that downsampling mode when we hit the record button. If you do that, if you stop that downsampling in camera when you're not recording, you could probably also disable the fan. Because if you're no longer downsampling and no longer running the fan, I would imagine you would get some pretty dramatic battery life increases. All right, well, this is already way too long, but A few kind of more pie-in-the-sky firmware update wishes. Basic video functionality in photo mode. I feel like they could just have ported the R5 firmware 100% to this. The reason this is more of a pie-in-the-sky thing is because they obviously would have had a lot of internal discussions about this, and they obviously took the time and the engineering resources to remove that part from this camera. That was a very conscious decision. That being said, because of the delayed times between photo and video, I still think that would be a real boon to have. A basic mode, like something where you could switch into a full auto mode, maybe. Or just have setting, set your aperture and shutter speed and be able to use auto ISO, something like that. So if you're moving inside, outside, you need to catch something really quickly, or otherwise a few custom modes where, say you're doing a wedding ceremony or something where you're inside with fixed lighting, the lighting's steady, or a conference or something like that, and you're expected to do the photo and video. You've got it. You can preset a custom mode, be in photo, and then just hit the record button or hit your custom 10 button here or something like that and go right into that mode and have your exposure set and know it's going to be okay. So kind of a semi-auto or full auto mode and a couple presets, something like that. Even if it was just that, I think that would add greatly to the functionality. Open gate mode. I can't imagine that'll ever happen. I don't think there are any Canon cinema cameras, even the C700, that have an open gate mode. I like how Panasonic does this with the GH6. That would open up, again, I've never even touched an anamorphic lens, but that would open up just some fun creative possibilities and more usefulness, because as I understand it, when you're already shooting with a 16:9 crop of the sensor like this and you go to anamorphic, you're kind of limited to like the, 1.3 or 1.8 times squeeze factors. If you go to like 2, you just end up too wide and you're ended up, cropping a bunch off the sides. So going to an open gate mode, I think, would open up some more possibilities for anamorphic lenses and just give you, I guess, a more full top to bottom, 4:3 mode. If that's something you wanted to do, like, being able to go into shoot like a giant 8K square. I'm not sure what the resolution would be, but being able to shoot that full resolution mode and be able to crop more and pan more in post, even for more, kind of retro looks, like then downsize that to a Super 35 or 16, add some grain, and, do whatever you want. That would just be fun. I can't imagine that will happen though. Finally, lens breathing correction. I'm sure Canon has the tech to do this. I just realized I've forgotten one thing here, which was in video mode. This was not my pie in the sky. This was a very possible one. Ability to change and move and resize the waveform monitor, because as it is now, I hate how it's stuck awkwardly, kind of just off center there. On the camera, it seems like there's an area where it could just slot right into the on-screen UI. Being able to double the size and opacity is of course great, but please give me the ability to move the silly thing. And it's interesting in the video here, it is closer to the upper right underneath the YCC 422 in the video, and mine is much farther down and to the left. So I wonder if that is a change that's been made. Support for the 0.71 times mount adapter. Now it just says includes support for the mount adapter. So I don't know, has the mount adapter not been supported up until now? And if so, again, that's going to be a fairly niche use case, I think, because versus the sort of C70, for which it was more or less designed, that 0.71 mount adapter, this gives you full frame out of the box. The mount adapter, I believe the way that works, you get the stop-a-light, you get the full frame field of view, but I believe your depth of field remains that of a Super 35 sensor and lens combination. So in that case, if you need the light and the field of view, why not just go to full frame? Unless you are somehow depth of field limited. But interesting. I mean, again, support. I'm not gonna shake my fist at Canon for adding support for really anything. Faster switching time between photo and video modes. That'll, exciting. That's great. We'll have to see what that's like. Power saving mode will be excellent to see how they implement that. Hopefully, it's something that's more granular than just enable power saving, like you've got in your LCD, refresh rate, high mode or regular mode. It would be great to have some granular control as to what it's doing in what modes. Digital teleconverter option. If they can do that, and again, I've never really played around with the Sony implementation. I think their clear image zoom is what they call it. But as far as I know, it maintains full HD or 4K, depending on the resolution of the sensor, as you zoom in digitally, because I think it's changing the crop of the sensor, and because the sensors are so high resolution, I mean, you can get to say a Super 16 crop and still have at least full HD resolution. So if Canon can implement this in a way where there isn't really any loss in quality, I suppose there would be an increase in noise as you crop into a smaller area of the sensor. But if there's no loss in quality otherwise, that could be very interesting and very useful. Well, this was far too long. Anyways, it's nice to see Canon opening up a bit more. You know, they've come out and said they will offer some support for third-party RF lenses. And now with firmware, we're already well over a year past the launch of the R1. We're, I don't know, 2.5, geez, we're almost 3 years past the launch of the R5. But to still be getting, you know, updates that are more than just bug fixes, from Canon no less at this time, is kind of exciting. So I hope we see more from them in the future. Keep it up, Canon. All right. Well, that's it for me.